Hello, viewers, and welcome back to Africa and Beyond Television Network. So, Team Zimbabwe, there was a conversation between Trevor Ncube and a guy called Ritesh Anand. He's a Zimbabwean, and we need to take a look onto this conversation and understand what is really happening, because it exposes Emerson Mnangagwa and the ZANU-PF government. They've been lying to us for a very, very long time, and we need to understand these things, because without the fundamentals on the ground, we are going nowhere. Zimbabwe is operating like a tuck shop without any reserves. Let us hear.
Moments of in this successful space that you are, where you say, "I wish I was home."
Yeah, I mean, I've been lucky, to have landed on my feet when I left Zimbabwe. I joined Crown Agents, which is, a 200-year-old development agency that supports development in Africa and the Caribbean, and spent 5 years there working with central banks across Africa. So I was mentioning this earlier. I mean, one of my frustrations is I worked with the Central Bank of Malawi and Namibia, Eswatini, and I got the opportunity to not only manage the reserves for many of these countries, but to work closely with the central bank governors and the heads of reserves management through MEFMI. And MEFMI is in Harare.
Yeah.
But I could never travel to Zimbabwe or do any work with Zimbabwe. Because
why?
Partly, I guess, I would say partly because of sanctions, but partly because Zimbabwe had no reserves to manage. Yeah? I mean, Zimbabwe's reserves, I think even today, our reserves are less than 3 months import cover. So, take Central Bank of Rwanda, for example. Rwanda has close to $3 billion in reserves, right? We manage.
So we are talking about a country without reserves, or with reserves which can only cover for 3 months. We are talking about a country which is not producing anything and which is relying heavily on imports. This is the kind of country we are talking about. So if you look at Rwanda, as small as it is, it carries reserves up to more than 3 billion United States dollars. Right here in Zimbabwe, we do not have any reserves. We can't talk about any reserves. So when you hear these boys, Wanamtuli Ncube, Wana John II, when you hear them speaking as if they are going to do anything, miracles to make the currencies work, to make the economy work, just know that these people are simply misleading, and they know for sure that this country can never be saved. Propaganda which is running right here in Zimbabwe. Every day, wherever you go, there is propaganda everywhere. I've asked the senior ZANU-PF people so many questions, and I said, how do you have a country? How do you run a country without reserves? Because one of the major importance of reserves is that they support and maintain confidence in a country. When you have reserves, when you implement policies, both monetary and fiscal, you look at the reserves which we have and you make proper policies. But Zimbabwe, you cannot make proper policies, fiscal policies and monetary policies, because we do not have reserves, which means we can't make long-term monetary and fiscal policies. We can't. We only have to rely on short-term basis policies. And these short-term policies are the reasons why we are always failing. And there is uncertainty in the market, which makes our businesses fail to work properly in our government. So when we have reserves, we also limit external vulnerability, because we have foreign currency liquidity which is enough to absorb shocks during times of crisis. For example, when we got into COVID, we were hit by a major crisis right here in Zimbabwe than any other country, because we didn't have reserves. We didn't have anything, and our production was halted by COVID, and that impacted us so much. Look at how the war in Ukraine impacted us also. It's because we have nothing. When other countries are buying for the future, we cannot buy for the future. For example, the issues of fuel. Zimbabwe cannot stock fuel because we don't have the reserves to do so. We don't. So if you look at other countries, they can do things quickly and secure things for their own people for a period. But Zimbabwe can't. How do we provide a level of confidence to markets in a country which can't meet its own external obligations? We are talking about economics right here. A country must be able to meet its external obligations. Zimbabwe is failing and finding it hard to meet its external obligations. This is the reason why you are seeing everybody and you are seeing the companies running around to look for foreign currency on the streets. If we had enough reserves, what it means is the central bank will be dealing with all issues to do with external obligations on behalf of the banks which we have in Zimbabwe, on behalf of the companies, which means no company will require to have foreign currency. Zig izvezvi ringadai risiri kutipa headache because you and me could simply use Zig to transact across Zimbabwe. Then the central bank will take US dollars equivalent and settle international obligations. But because we do not have reserves, Emmerson Mnangagwa is exposed. That is the reason why you are seeing this Zig crashing. This is the reason why you are seeing our currency crashing. You don't need gold for you for a currency to work. You just need confidence in your country. How can we maintain reserves for our country when Vanachivayo are buying cars like tomatoes internationally? Millions and millions are coming out of Zimbabwe each and every day. They are buying houses in Dubai, buying houses in Singapore, buying houses everywhere across the country. They are sending their children to the best universities, spending millions and millions each and every year. How do you expect a country to build reserves when every single dollar which you have is being used to sponsor trips to various countries are unnecessary and useless? Ivo president vachava vagari pasi kudai vafly vakadai. He is chartering international planes for him to travel across the world. Ike zvinezvi vari kutotya havo kubuda munyika zvitombori nani. Who does that? What this man has said is very, very important because it shows that we have a clueless leader of government. We have a man who got into power and failed to sunga homwe. He failed to make sure that Maria Eskungo Buddha Sna art. It's like when you are in a family which can't serve is doomed. Because every time you have a problem, unomanya kwa mining, ndokumbiro mari tazoita problem, kwazoita namo, tinokumbiro chakati kwazoita namo. When you have such a situation yekuti you are always begging, then you are in a problem. Unofanira kuita kuti in 12 months unombokumbiro ka 1. All other times you are survived or you are assisted by your own savings. Kana uchinge waomerwa. So our government is being mismanaged. Our government looting is happening at alarming rates. Look at how they are importing things from China. Look at how they are importing things out of Zimbabwe. Same things which can be made right here in Zimbabwe at cheaper prices. Same quality. They go and buy it in other countries. I was surprised by this other man who went to Botswana to buy some things. And whilst he was in Botswana, he got angry because he was told that these issues were shipped from Zimbabwe. And he came to Harare and he went to Glenview uko kwakagadzirwa zvinhu zvaakanotenga kuBotswana, machairs akanotenga kuBotswana nemari iri pamusoro. He went to Glenview akanoona machairs iwayo ari much cheaper. It's because these people, they believe kuti class is when you buy things or when you import things from other countries. I do not mind to see a resident of UK, a resident of Australia, a resident of China. I do not mind to see them sending goods to Zimbabwe. But when as resident in Zimbabwe then travels to Dubai, travels to China to go and buy things which are presently right here in Zimbabwe, I don't get the sense. How do you expect money to circulate in your own country when you're not supporting your own businesses? Now, we are being told that a business called Dairy Board has moved out of Zimbabwe to South Africa. Why? It's because in Zimbabwe has become a death trap to businesses. Zimbabwe has become a burden to businesses. Yes. So these companies are hanging on, thinking and hoping kuti mwe musizvinomukawo zvakanaka. But it will never be easy as long as we have this corrupt regime. Ichitonga. Guys, imagine the ZEC saga. Yekuti kurutaurwa unzo up to 100 million allegedly paid to a company in South Africa. You are externalizing up to 100 million for things which you can have used by Zimbabwean companies and do everything within Zimbabwe, and you save those millions. This is the reality. You know, vanhu vakangwara, when we talk about investment and conducive policies, the importance of having companies right here in Zimbabwe and businesses right here in Zimbabwe is that these companies, when they are local, they keep their profits here in Zimbabwe, especially when they can predict that their future is bright. Kana vachizwa kuti in the next 20, 40, 50, 60 years, 100 years, our businesses and our companies shall be protected here in Zimbabwe. They'll keep money here in Zimbabwe. Look at it, guys. China havana bank accounts ema US dollars. They don't take swipe. They don't take eco cash. In instances where they take eco cash, they cash out immediately. Kusati kwadoka, they run to cash out. Voenda nemuso kudzimba. It's because they want to keep hard currencies. It's because they are taking hard currencies to their own countries. A Zimbabwean, an ordinary Zimbabwean, will be given a limit yekuti 2000 ubuda munyika, but mchina hana limit because vane chitsotsi chavo chavari kushandisa to ship man out of Zimbabwe. You know, these things are not so proper for the people of Zimbabwe. They're not so proper. Zimbabwe does not have reserves. Rwanda, with reserves more than 3.5 billion. Rwanda, which is twice smaller than Masvingo province, in a 3.5 billion United States dollars in reserves. Zimbabwe ine goride rakazara muchitrangi chemwana wechikoro. Zimbabwe iri kuti tine reserves egold rakazara mutrangi remwana wechikoro. Yet ukaenda kunana London and you see the reserves which they have of gold, unofamba ukaneta uri muma reserves. But right here in Zimbabwe, we are on our own. So up until we have a government which is going to prioritize policies which are viable for the people of Zimbabwe, then we are on our own, we are doomed, and nothing is going to work. So I have said to say there is need for confidence, and confidence is the one which brings better policies. You cannot make sound policies without confidence. Imimi pachenyu senyika, how do you gain confidence? Imimi msina ma reserves. Mutuli Ncube atorina confidence pachake. How are we going to have confidence in the policies made by Mutuli Ncube? Iye pachaka storina confidence zacho. How do you gain confidence when you don't have reserves? How? So when you listen to these interviews, they expose ZANU-PF a lot because they show the crookedness of this government. You wonder how Henrietta Rushkoya was acquitted. Awanikwa ne 6 kgs of gold achibuda naro achienda kunze kwenyika. Yet the country is suffering. Zimbabwe is a country which was supposed to say atichatengese goride rese ngariuye ku Arabizet. But they don't have money to pay because they have nothing. Why is it our country does not even own mines? We have talked about this time without numbers. The day our country is going to prioritize its own people, prioritize local things, is the day we are going to start to have something better. As much as we are concerned, we are on our own. MuZimbabwe hamuna chinhu chekuti hanzi vanotombotaura about reserve management, because they don't have reserve management objectives. How do you coordinate reserve management without reserves? You can't. So what is Mtulingbe doing? What is John II doing? Is because Zimbabwe is a looting ground. Zimbabwe is a looting ground where every looter rushes to. They come as investors, but they come to loot. They come to take away. They come to grab. This is the honest truth. Zimbabwe does not have reserves. And up until those things are corrected, then we are doomed as a nation. So this remains a fact. This remains a fact. Petronella, thank you very much. I'm well. Mbire, thank you very much. I'm well. Nyaradzo, thank you very much. How are you? This side, we are trying by all means to make sure that we deal with the issues affecting us as a nation, Zimbabwe. We don't have a government. As a people, let us agree that we don't have a government. And the only way for us to be saved is for us to have a government. And up until we have that government, then we'll continue to suffer as a people.